Good afternoon. Today I'm going to give you a Microsoft Teams tutorial on just basic navigation inside of Microsoft Teams. So if you are new to using Teams, I'm going to give you the basics of how you navigate inside of Teams. All right. When you open Teams, there are a few things to be aware of. So on the left, over here where you can see my mouse, these are the primary places for navigating throughout Teams. Up along the top is going to be where whatever you are selected on shows you kind of what your options are. And then you're going to have this panel where you can see chat right here. That's going to show you some of the options you have there as well. And then up in this top right is where you can change your status, make it do not disturb or busy or available. And that's also where you can change Teams accounts. If you have another organization or entity that you have a Teams account with, you can swap back and forth between different Teams accounts, right? So all of that's available there, right? So starting with the left-hand panel, starting with activity. Activity is where you can look at unread messages, mentions, tag mentions. Basically, activity is just going to give you a running stream in chronological order of any activity that you need to be notified of. This could be new meetings. This could be notifications. This could be responses to chat that you sent. This could be being tagged in chats. You're just going to get a running tally of anything that's happened. And you can click this button for unread and quickly filter to anything that you haven't necessarily read yet, right? From there, probably the most used section of Teams that you're going to have is the chat section. And in chat, you're going to have a few different features, right? So you're going to have some more filters like unread, channels, chats, meeting chats. You're going to have a Copilot interface where you can interact with Microsoft Copilot. Probably talk more about that in another video, but it's Microsoft's LLM that you can chat with, like a Claude or a ChatGPT. Discover is kind of similar to the activity feed, except for it'll recommend posts inside of the organization to you. Followed threads and mentions are obviously just other filtered views for specific things inside of Teams. What you need to know about the chat feature inside of Teams is that there are four kind of categories that, or sorry, there are three categories that things fall into, right? So number one is favorites. So these are chats, teams, channels, whatever that you have favorited intentionally. So all your favorites will show up in a list. If you expand that, that gives you quick access to whatever you have favorited as a user of Teams. Underneath that are teams and channels. This is where you will have access to any of the teams and channels that you have permission to access inside of Microsoft Teams. Now, I know the terminology can be a little redundant because the application is called Microsoft Teams, and then you organize things into buckets that are called teams. That is the highest level of bucket, and then teams are made up of a series of channels, which are further breakdown inside of that team. You can think of it like a folder structure. Teams is the app. A team is like an entity that organizes things, right? So on our teams, we have a legal documentation team, a sales and marketing team, a financial information team, project templates and tools team, human resources team, clients team, right? And then, for example, in the clients team, I'm not going to expand it so you see the list, but in the clients team, if I did expand it, there would be channels, and there would be a channel for each client that we have. So if I expand sales and marketing, you can see the different channels like marketing videos, pitch and information decks, sales resources, and there are more that are just hidden right there, right? But that is how you build out teams and channels. Now, one thing to know that we'll visit in more depth in a separate YouTube video is that every time you create a team, it creates a SharePoint site on the back end. That's where documentation and the things that you do actually get stored, and you can access that through the Teams interface, right? So the teams and channels, if your organization is a heavy Teams user, you're probably going to be working with teams and channels a lot, and so this is going to be a common place where you're going to be accessing different teams, having chats about project, accessing file repositories, right? Like whatever it is, a lot of that's going to be in the teams. And then the chats is your traditional like chat function, and there are really two types of chats. that you're going to have inside of Teams. So number one is direct people chats, where you reach out to a very specific person, or multiple people, because you can have group chats, but you're chatting with individuals. The second type of chat is going to be meeting chats, right? So when you have a Teams meeting, it's going to create a chat for that meeting, and that chat will be accessible through Teams to the participants of the meeting even after the meeting is over, and those chats are going to show up there. You can see a lot of my chats right here are from specific meetings. The reason for that is because most of the people that I chat with a lot are pinned into my favorites, so they show up in favorites instead of the chat portion, and my chat portion is mainly made up of meeting chats, right? So that is there's a lot more depth to go into here that we will in other videos, so keep an eye out for that. But it that's kind of a basic overview of the chat functionality, right? Next, over here on the left-hand tab, you have the calendar. And the calendar is just going to give you a breakdown of what your calendar is. This is like the Outlook view, but you are able to edit meetings. You are able to create meetings. You are able to use the Meet Now functionality up here to do an impromptu meeting and call people into it. But you can use this calendar view in much the same way that you use Outlook if you are used to using Outlook, right? The calls section is where you can make a call directly to people inside of your organization. So this is one of those things. You can also, depending on what you have set up with your licensing, this is where you could also make external calls if you have kind of all the VoIP features set up. But this will give you just a breakdown of the calls. You can see I talked to Will and Ben a lot, which is a lot of the calls that I have going on here. But this will let you just keep a running tally of your calls. OneDrive is where you can interact specifically with your OneDrive storage. So this is a lot of the places where you might store things locally, right? So the back end of Teams is SharePoint. But if you're in the Microsoft environment, then you also have OneDrives that are unique to the individuals, right? So you might have a team for clients that has SharePoint on the back end, which SharePoint is then storing all of your documents associated with that client. But you personally have a OneDrive associated with your Office 365 account. That OneDrive is kind of like a folder for you. If you go to like File Explorer on your computer or wherever, you can access it through that interface in Teams. You then have the Copilot tab, where you can also access it there. If you use Power BI inside of organization, which we do, then you're going to have a Power BI interface here as well. If you don't, I don't know if it shows up or not. You might still have it and just not be anything there. If you're an admin, you'll have a Teams admin one as well that you can interact with. And then those are really kind of the core features going down this left-hand panel. Again, we're going to talk about a lot more of them in depth, but the last thing I want to tell you is that you can pin over here on the left different apps that you may want to use or you may not want to use, right? So you can pin PowerPoint over here, you could pin Visio, you could pin Word. If you use like Asana or YouTube or whatever it is, right? You can choose a number of different apps, even external apps like Jira or something like that, Adobe, Smartsheet, Monday. All of these things you can pin inside of Teams over here on this left-hand panel. So you have a lot of flexibility if you go look at all the apps that are available to you to take, like I said, Microsoft's vision with Teams is kind of make it the UI that people work through, right? If you're a heavy user of Microsoft products, whether that's Excel, Word, PowerPoint, whatever, or even external things like Jira, like Monday, like Asana, whatever, what they want to make Teams the way that you work. They want to make it the interface that you work through, right? And so there is a lot of flexibility with a lot of different apps that you can add to your panel over here in Teams to be able to access all of the things that you're working in on a daily basis in this single point of contact, right? That is the vision that Microsoft has for it. Now you're going to have to use it yourself and decide how much you like that UI and how much you like that vision, but you can use it to do a lot of different things inside of Teams, and that is certainly one of them. So That was extremely quick. If you've watched to this point, hopefully this was helpful in just giving you a brief overview of Microsoft Teams. Again, the intent with this video was to give you kind of an introduction and a quick overview of navigation as in the form of a Microsoft Teams tutorial. We're going to do some more videos on Microsoft Teams and more in-depth pieces of their features. But hopefully this at least has given you enough to understand the basic navigation of Microsoft Teams. If you want to see more of that videos, if you like this type of content, please like the video, comment if you want, but definitely subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build up that audience, and we want to build videos that really give value to folks and help them in their workplace and in their business. So if you enjoy this content, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and be on the lookout for our next videos with Microsoft Teams tutorials as we break down more in-depth specific features inside of Microsoft Teams. Thank you.